Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a respected author from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, USA, Mr. Jake Knox. Jake, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful to be here.
Thank you. Jake is an author of a book titled Oak Logs and Gasoline. He's an author and mentor helping people rethink growth, burnout, and what lasts. So, Jake, before we come to your book, a few questions for you. You describe
Sure.
yourself as a designer, builder, husband, and father. Looking back, which of these identities most shaped the man you are today and why?
Well, to me, family always comes first.
Yeah.
So that list is not in order of importance.
Hmm.
I would put my marriage and my relationship with my sons above everything
Yeah.
in my life. Um, and as you know, my wife and I have been married for a number of years, and as relationships grow and ebb and flow, and get stale and get uh, reconnected and all of those things. Looking back, that's been such a wonderful journey.
Mm.
Uh, Whereas the growth of my relationship with my sons has always just kept getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and the bonds um, better and better all the time. So my identity, where I've come from as a person, where I sit right now as a human being, I am a very proud husband and a very proud father, and everything else just falls in line.
Fabulous. Thank you. You write with the voice of a mentor and a father, and your first answer probably now explains the father role. Was there a moment when you realized that your lived experience needed to be shared more publicly?
Yes, and actually, it was a confirmation or an affirmation from my one of my sons.
Hmm.
Um, I have two older boys who are out of the house and adults, and I have two sons that are still in the high school
Hmm.
kind of age group. But one of my older sons, as we this book sort of was born out of kind of a joking back and forth with my kids, like
Hmm.
of the things that I would say to them over and over again. Oh, here's dad's cliches. Here's the quotes we always hear from dad.
Hmm.
And oak logs and gasoline is one of those metaphors. And it's about your internal fire
Hmm.
and what are you fueling it with?
Hmm.
Is this sustainable things, oak logs that represent the things that you have to build and earn. You have to chop the wood, you have to stack the wood, you have to dry it before it's ready for you to use
Correct.
to have a better life. Whereas gasoline is that quick. You can go grab some gasoline and toss it on a fire and get a quick flare.
Hmm.
Uh, my kids are so sick of hearing those things. But that's where this was all born. It was all born from those thoughts. And one day, one of my older sons said to me, Dad, every kid needs to hear this stuff. He goes, I feel so grateful that you've said these things to us over and over again.
Hmm.
Um, he goes, you should write a book. And I'd never thought of it before.
Hmm.
And it just kind of went, oh, you know what? Let's start writing these ideas down.
Yeah.
And it took about 3 years of writing ideas down, back and forth. And we actually put a basket on my desk in my office, and I would, between conversations, driving in the truck with the boys to practice or something like that. Oh, here, write this one down. Or just when I'm thinking about my boys and things that we're going through and I'm reflecting by myself, I write a little note down. And it became a pile of notes that then became the initial framework of how do we say this to other people that they can use it and hear it in their own voice for their own reflection.
Hmm. Well said. One more question before I move to your book. Jake, many people talk about success, but your work speaks more about consistency and integrity. How did your definition of success change over the years?
Um, I think for my own reflection in my own life, it comes back to the constant battle inside of myself between my pride and my ego.
Hmm.
And when I consciously think of that, when I was younger, I was driven by my ego.
Hmm.
I wanted to be something, and I wanted everybody to know who I am. And the idea of that couldn't come fast enough for me. And I didn't know how that was going to happen or how I was going to get it, but I wanted to be famous to people. I wanted people to go, Jake Knox, this is, and so I as fast as I could, consumed things and pretended that I was more than I was, and got recognition for those things, because you can look good on the outside. These are
Yeah.
a couple of chapters that go hand in hand in my book. You can look
Hmm.
good on the outside and get a lot of places,
Hmm.
um, but is it sustainable for your life? And are those things going to catch up with you?
Hmm.
Uh, and I think I felt those things in a number of different ways throughout my life, where um, and on the other side of that, I'm reading one of my favorite mentors, Mahatma Gandhi, saying, I may not have the capacity to do this when I start, but I sure will
Hmm.
have the capacity to do it by the time I'm finished. I paraphrase with
Hmm.
something of that nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you can be driven with integrity to, put that bigger thing out there and show that bigger thing.
Yeah.
But the follow through is I think where that matters,
Hmm.
and the actual doing and the proving and the being and the process are the integral part of fulfillment there.
Absolutely. Great response. Let's now come to your book, Oak Logs and Gasoline. And I'm going to ask all our viewers and listeners to go and check out Jake Knox's book, Oak Logs and Gasoline. Jake, the central metaphor of the book contrasts oak logs and gasoline. Can you explain how this image first came to you and why it has stayed so powerful?
Um, yeah, I meditate a lot, and my meditation, when I meditate daily, I think through in visuals,
Hmm.
and I'm a very visual person, and I'm a storyteller, and I've been that my whole life, and I love parables, and I love likenesses and similes and metaphors, and and so when I my first go-to explain things to other people in a way
Hmm.
that I think that I can make it stick or land,
Yeah.
um, is to use imagery. And while I was meditating one time, a long time ago, I
Hmm.
thought to myself, I have this fire. I was feeling this fire inside of my belly,
Hmm.
and um, and then I had been talking to one of my sons about maybe checking in with like candy consumption. There was a
Hmm.
sleepover
Hmm.
that had happened with a bunch of boys, and there was
Yeah.
a bunch of like um, 7-Up, empty 7-Up bottles, and a big empty thing of Skittles. And I was like, "Did you three kids consume all of that last
Hmm.
night? Like,
Hmm.
how do you feel right now?
Hmm.
Like you got practice later today. How do
Yeah.
you feel?" And so while I was meditating, then it kind of just came together inside of me. Living in Wisconsin, being from Wisconsin,
Hmm.
we have that lumberjack woodsman heritage. I mean, you can in the summertime you can go to a festival up north and and see the lumberjacks in a log rolling competition
Hmm.
and all of those types of things. It's part of what we do, and we
Yeah.
camp in the summertime and we sit around campfires, and my mentorship style is that very comfortable sitting around the campfire with the elders, listening as a young boy,
Hmm.
participating in with your voice that you think knows more than you actually do, and
Hmm.
calm, gentle voices coming back to you and asking you questions and guiding you through those thoughts to develop them.
Very interesting.
Uh,
Hmm.
and so that campfire is really this a very great central part of my narrative, um,
Very
and so
interesting.
that's
Very
that's where
interesting.
that came from. Yep.
My next question is, why do you think modern life pushes people so strongly towards gasoline habits rather than oak log practices?
Well, in my life, and I see it with my kids
Hmm.
and my wife and everybody around me. We're we're we have a lot to do. Life is fast. There's a lot that's expected from us,
Yeah.
And with the technology the way that it is, and the apps that we have, and the phone that we have in our pocket that can get us instant information,
Hmm.
uh, we, as in my life, I feel like I've been trained up to do more things at once.
Hmm.
And so when you feel like you can do more things at once, you really are in in this race to keep up, because you can look around at anyone. There's people that are doing that very well, who are just cranking through things, at least what's perceived to be doing very well.
Hmm.
Are we doing really well with more
Hmm.
things when you don't have time to stop and breathe, stop and look at your wife,
Yeah.
look at your kids as you're dropping them off, talk to them in that 6 minute drive to school? Um, or are you just already in that next thing that you need to get done because
Hmm.
your calendar needs to be full of time and attention?
Very
And
interesting.
so I
Yeah.
that I feel that way, and slowing down for me means meditating and breathing and taking a few seconds
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
being present.
Absolutely. Meditation is a great way to calm your mind as well. But moving on, you write that purpose is often quiet rather than dramatic. How can people recognize purpose when it does not arrive as a big revelation?
Um, I think it's intentional. I think its purpose is very intentional,
Hmm.
uh, and you can if you're having trouble finding purpose, maybe you're looking too big. And maybe you're starting too big. What is my purpose? My
Hmm.
purpose is to be an author and have everyone in the world read my book.
Yeah.
Maybe not yet. Great if we can get to that point. But my purpose in my life
Hmm.
is to wake up every day and make sure that my family knows that I love them, and make sure that my family gets out the door and is happy and healthy and growing. I'm creating the next generation of leaders in
Hmm.
this world who are making the world a better place to be.
Hmm.
That is my central purpose.
Hmm.
And when I come back to that, it's really easy. It's easy to do that
Hmm.
because it's a very tangible thing. And then I can grow that purpose. Okay, my family is good. What is more? Um, and so I think daily practice of
Hmm.
the smaller things allows you to build mental and emotional habits that can lead you to being able to take on more, bigger
Hmm.
purpose. Or look at how well I'm doing here. Can I offer more? And I got to that point in my life where my kids helped me to realize that I could help more people do what I'm doing now.
Hmm.
So my purpose just got to grow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. You argue that integrity matters more than visibility. How can someone stay grounded while living in a world which is obsessed with attention?
Well, there's the one of the old sayings, and I don't know who said it, but integrity is how you act when nobody's watching.
Correct.
Uh, that's that thing. Are you true to yourself
Yeah.
there?
Hmm.
Uh, and I think it starts as simple as that
Hmm.
for me. Integrity um, doesn't always look on the outside how you feel on the inside.
Hmm.
And when you say, "Well, I really," something bad happens, and it was a result of maybe I wasn't my best version of myself that day,
Hmm.
and I let something slip,
Hmm.
and on the outside to somebody else, it looks like, oh, well, Jake screwed this one up. He doesn't care about
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
In fact, I do care. I wasn't my best version of myself,
Hmm.
but my integrity was in place, and then um, making amends from there. And communication is a big one. It's one that
Hmm.
I've struggled with in my
Yeah.
life a
Yeah.
bunch of different times.
Hmm.
Is communicating where you come from, and then that's what you can control.
Hmm. Great response. You also described stress as a signal rather than an enemy. What signals do most people ignore until it's too late?
Oh, I think stress, in my perspective anyway, it looks like intensity.
Hmm.
It feels like I can ramp up when I'm at work. I can ramp up. I can get these things going. And that feeling, that adrenaline feeling, or that
Hmm.
throw it in the cooking pot with anxiety and deadlines and all the other things you have to do in your life.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, I've made the mistake before in my life of going, okay, I just need to be more intense. I just
Hmm.
need to be more intense. And what I was ignoring was the fact, because of my ego,
Hmm.
that I was stressed out.
Yeah.
And so, it, I called it something else. I called it, oop, you got a deadline. You just need to be more intense.
Hmm.
And you can do that for a certain period of time,
Hmm.
but burnout is real.
Yeah.
And stress fries your nervous system.
Hmm.
Uh, but if you can recognize what those stressors are in your life, you can go, okay, I'm stressed out about this,
Yeah.
but I can channel that into something else. I identify it.
Well said. The contrast between good on the outside and good on the inside is striking.
Yeah.
Why is this distinction so important today?
Um, I think it's a big one for young people.
Hmm.
You know, I think from our kids going from elementary school, primary school, into the middle school, junior high stage, into the high school.
Hmm.
And I've done it 4 times with 4 different boys, 4 different personalities.
Yeah.
And I remember back when I was in high school and middle school and figuring out my own identity
Hmm.
and looking around every day at what other people are doing and trying to model, be somebody else, on the perception of what I think is cool. Uh, and I think if I would have known, if I could have read a book when I was younger
Hmm.
that just identifies that, that just says that, and I talk about how kids hear things differently from their parents than they do from their coaches,
Hmm.
and parents that say, "Oh, I I don't know why my kid won't listen to me for
Hmm.
anything," but they're like the most coachable kid. They listen to their coach; they'll do anything for their coach.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
you just need it from a different perspective or hear
Hmm.
it from a different voice.
Hmm.
That's why mentors are so incredibly important. Um, but just the idea of you, being good with yourself.
Yeah.
Let's and I put them in order in the book. Good
Hmm.
on the outside, and then we read immediately next about being good on the inside,
Hmm.
because identifying those things that we do in our lives to
Hmm.
show off or to be something or to, are we buying things that we don't necessarily want so that we can look good for somebody else? Why?
Hmm.
Why are you doing that? So
Hmm.
let's look at ourselves from the inside. What makes you you? You know, you're the only you.
Correct.
So just be the best you,
Correct.
and the people who matter will love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Uh, Jake, loneliness appears as a both a pain and a preparation in your writing. How can solitude become a strength rather than a weakness?
Um, Loneliness is very real.
Hmm.
It's and I'm sure everyone can relate to that feeling on some level or another. And loneliness is a product of a longing for connection. And sometimes that's more of an immediate thing. Sometimes that's more of a deep longing that maybe is eluding you in your life.
Hmm.
Uh, and I believe that if you can turn the feeling of loneliness into a growth period
Hmm.
called solitude,
Mhm.
that you can find back into the chapter of good on the inside,
Hmm.
and then identify what your needs are to go and fulfill what you need from the loneliness.
Hmm.
Uh, so I think that the two, they sit next to each other.
Hmm.
They're very much not the same thing. And loneliness is, to me, is a feeling that has anxiety tied to it.
Hmm.
Um, but everyone comes from a different place, and I think and treats loneliness a different way from their
Yeah.
own perspective and
Yeah.
what their emotional needs are.
Hmm.
Uh, and what I hope to do is help people find a tool to use called solitude
Hmm.
when you are alone, to use it as a growth period to determine how you can get out of loneliness.
Hmm. I have time for two more questions for you. You say that not every hill is worth dying for. How does discernment become a form of strength rather than avoidance?
There's a lot coming at you every
Mhm.
day in the world
Mhm.
with social media
Correct.
and news sources, and
Correct.
what news sources are valid or which ones are hype and which ones are clickbait. It's just coming at you, coming
Mm.
at you, coming at you, and it almost drives you to need to respond
Mm.
quickly, because you see other people on the comments and the feedback, and the shares and the likes and the arguments that are happening online, um, about all of these different topics. I think it's hard not to get drawn in to
Mm.
that, especially if you have a platform or a position on something, to
Mm.
not be involved. But is it worth your time? Is it worth your time
Mm.
sitting, even if you have a 30-minute lunch break and you go and you're scrolling through your phone and you find one of those arguments? Did you serve yourself in your
Mm.
30-minute lunch break by getting worked up about shouting back and forth with people
Yeah.
online about something? And did that land anywhere? Or could maybe you have used that time to reflect on your position and identify what's right in front of you to make someone else's day better,
Mm.
or to be the change you wish to see in the world? We'll come
Correct.
back to Gandhi. Um,
Absolutely. Mm. Well said. And my last question for you, Jake. When someone finishes your book, Oak Logs and Gasoline, what do you hope quietly changes in how they live their next ordinary day?
I hope that they find peace in themselves.
Mm.
I hope that they find a grace, inside of themselves,
Yeah.
because I was very careful in my writing to not be preachy, to
Mm.
not say, this is how you need to be. And if you're not good on the inside, you need to work on yourself.
Mm.
And you can't eat Skittles and drink a soda. I I don't want that. I don't want that for people. I want people to be okay with who they are
Mm.
today, and want more for themselves and want more for people around them,
Mm.
and guide with light and love, and that starts with inner peace.
Mm.
And I want people to feel that. And so as kids are growing up and all this stuff is being hurled at them, for them to have maybe something to come back to. I really feel like you can just pick up my book and open to any page
Mm.
and find a little nugget of something that might help you ground
Correct.
right now,
Correct.
in real time. And
Mm.
then also for mentors to read this book and go, oh, here's some language that I can use in my own voice that
Mm.
I didn't think I had the words for that. Or I hadn't talked to my kids about that. Or I
Mm.
hadn't talked to the kids at practice,
Yeah.
this kid that's struggling on my football team, about this stuff, because I just didn't know the right words. And so maybe this just helps get you past that point where
Mm.
you have more words in your own voice to
Mm.
give to people.
Very well said.
That's what I hope for.
Absolutely. And on that note, and your last words of wisdom, which is you hope people find peace in themselves, which is such a difficult thing to achieve. Thank you, Jake, for speaking to me about your own journey. I think um, there is so much wisdom in everything that you have shared with my viewers and listeners on life, on, as they all often say, the life happens, but the way you also craft your life is a very important factor. And I think you brought out some really interesting points and your thoughts on life, and you've pretty covered it well in your book, Oak and Growth. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.